Dear students, let's continue with our yesterday's topic, literary terms, and today I'm going to talk about short story. A short story is a brief fictional prose narrative that is shorter than a novel and that usually deals with only a few characters. A short story is fictional work of prose that is shorter in length than a novel. Edgar Allan Poe, in his essay The Philosophy of Composition, said that a short story should be read in one sitting, anywhere from a half hour to 2 hours, and that is limited to a certain unique or single effect to which every detail is subordinate. In contemporary fiction, a short story can range from 1000 to 15,000 words. An average short story is 1000 to 7500 words, with some exceptions reaching 10,000 or 15,000 words. At around 10 to 25 pages, that makes short stories much shorter than novels, with only a few approaching novella length. A piece of fiction shorter than 1000 words is considered a short story or flash fiction, and anything less than 300 words is called as microfiction. Now, what are the characteristics of a short story? Number one, unity of effect. A short story should create a single impression. Next, precision. It should be highly economical with words. Then, structural unity is also important. Most stories revolve around a single incident, character, or period of time. Then, characters should be developed to the extent required by the story. Then, the key elements of a short story. Just like in novel, there are certain key elements. In short story also, we have setting, plot, character, point of view, theme, and dialogue. So these are the 6 key elements of a short story. Setting means the background or the social environment or the age, that includes place and time. The setting of a short story is often simple. One time and one place is taken. Then plot, that is the sequence of events and actions. So in short stories, generally there is a single plot instead of multiple plots or subplots like we have in a novel. And some stories follow a traditional narrative arc with exposition at the beginning, then the rising action, which leads to a climax, peak moment of conflict, we can say, or action, and then a resolution at the end. Uh, However, contemporary short fiction or modern short stories, they are likely to begin in the middle of the action, drawing readers right into a dramatic scene. Then we have the characters. If you talk about characters, the characters are very few. One or two characters are there generally in a short story, and they are also very simple characters. Then point of view, which discusses writer's philosophy or criticism of life. It can be first person, second person, or sometimes third person. Then theme of the story is there, and dialogue, and it should be to the point and brief, because in a short story there is not much space for character development or for dialogues. Then if we talk about uh, the history of the short story, uh, we can say that short story form or storytelling can be traced back to ancient times. in legends, mythology, folklore, and fables found in communities all over the world. Some of these stories existed in written form, but many were passed down to generations through oral traditions. Early examples of short stories ranged from the Middle Eastern folk tales of 1001 Nights, collected by multiple authors between the 8th and 14th centuries, later known in English as Arabian Nights, to the English collection of Canterbury Tales written by Geoffrey Chaucer in the 14th century. Then, until the early 19th century, short story collections by individual authors appeared more regularly in print. The brothers Grimm published their volume of fairy tales in 1812. Edgar Allan Poe revealed his tales of mystery and adventure and Gothic fiction between 1832 and 1849, declaring the short story as superior to the novel because it could be read in a single sitting. Many literary critics also credit Russian author and playwright Anton Chekhov as a founder of the modern short story based on his esteemed writing in the late 1800s. Then, this genre, short stories, gained popularity in the second half of the 19th century with the growth of print magazines and journals. Newspaper and magazine editors began publishing stories as commercial entertainment, creating a demand for short, plot driven narratives with mass appeal. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, well known periodicals like the Atlantic Monthly, the New Yorker, and Harper's Magazine were paying good money for short stories that showed more literary technique and artistry. The golden era of publishing gave rise to the short story as we know it today, a real literary art form. Then, if we talk about different types of short stories, just like novels, we have all kinds and categories of short stories, which includes action, adventure, biography, comedy, crime, detective, drama, dystopia, fable, fantasy, history, horror, mystery, philosophy, politics, romance, satire. Then we have science fiction, we have supernatural themes also, the thrillers, tragedy, etc. So there are various types of short stories. Then some literary styles or movements with examples of authors and the period in which they wrote. First of all, we'll talk about Gothic fiction. Stories that explore human psychology deals with themes of fear, death, and imagination by incorporating mystery, horror, suspense, or supernatural elements. For example, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne from 1830s to 1850s. Then realism, another style representing subject matter in a detailed and realistic way that feels true to life. The authors who wrote such kind of stories are Kate Chopin, O. Henry, and Anton Chekhov between 1850 to early 1900s. Then modernism, another movement, experimenting with narrative form, style, and chronology using techniques like inner monologues and stream of consciousness to capture the experience of the individual. Famous writers of such kind of stories are James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Catherine Mansfield, and the time during which it flourished is between 1910 to 1920s. Then we have science fiction also, presenting imagined futures or dystopian worlds in which humans face profound technological, social, or environmental changes. For example, Ray Bradbury is the author of such kind of fiction, and it's between 1940s and 1950s that it flourished mostly. Then we have magical realism, combining realistic narrative or setting with elements of surrealism, dreams, or fantasy. Writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 1960s to 1970s. And then comes the postmodern era, using fragmentation, paradox, or unreliable narrators to explore the relationship between the author, reader, and text. For example, Donald Barthelme, George Louis Borges, Julio Cortázar, and the time period is 1950s to 1970s. So this is how uh, short story developed as a genre, and there are different types of short stories. The key elements we have already discussed, and I hope now this term is also clear to you. Thank you.